SoccerYank.com podcast, our home for domestic soccer. This is the Eastern Conference playoff preview. If you have not listened to our previous podcast, it is the Western Conference preview. In that podcast, we just talk about the matchups that we already know will take place, which is the playing game and the 2 versus 3 matchup. No large topics, no query, no final 3 questions. Keeping this one tight, we're keeping it simple. And it's just me by myself. This is Jay, also known as Rescinded Red. Said before, in the previous podcast, I know sometimes listening to a single person on a podcast for a extended period of time can be a little bit boring. And we just want to keep it as simple as possible, give you the information, give you something extra to think about when you come to these matchups. So let's jump right in with the playing game, which is the New York Red Bulls hosting Sporting Kansas City. To me, this is a matchup that is defined by narrative, not fact. Since September 6th, Sporting Kansas City is 2-4-1. The Red Bulls 6-2-1. The Red Bulls all season has been a victim of narrative. The only games they lost in the previous 9 was against an excellent LA Galaxy team and a very good Columbus Crew team. So we can sit here and say the Red Bulls are not beating the top echelon talent teams, which is a fine statement. You can say that. It does not mean that the Red Bulls are not a quality team, which they seem to be disrespected, and maybe I'm oversensitive, as I openly admit that I'm a Red Bull season ticket holder. I go a lot of games. I have a little bit of a vested interest in the team because I want to see as much good soccer as possible. So you might say I'm a little biased. I'm saying I'm just giving you the facts right now. When it comes to Sporting Kansas City, I wrote an article about this probably midway into the summer, and I kind of pointed out all the little things that are happening. It is not one major issue. It is fatigue. It is injuries. It is the fact that they're playing their third-string guys in some position. They're playing their second-string guys in some position, and this is partially because they sold guys like Yuri Urales and Kai Kamara last year. It's because their best starters are fatigued. Not Graham Zusi. Graham Zusi is actually playing better since the World Cup. But Matt Beasley's not playing better. So there's a lot of elements in Sporting Kansas City that's hurting this team. And I don't know if that's something that they can just turn on. They can't go out there and get a number 1 right back when they lost Chance Myers. They can't go out there and get a number 1 holding midfielder when they sold Urales. So while people want to say, Peter Burry said, we're tired, but this is a new game, this is a new team. It doesn't work like that, because what their issues are is not mental. What their issues are physical, and it has to do with the players on the roster, and it has to do with depth issue. So obviously Sporting Kansas City could win this game. They are battle tested in the playoffs. Last year they won them. They've been in the playoffs consistently. Right now, Peter Vermees is the best coach in the Eastern Conference playoffs. However, he has lost games that he should have won in the playoffs, most notably to Houston. And to be honest with you, watching these games from the Red Bulls have won 3 games of the last 4 and drew the other one on the road. So Mike Pecky seems to know how to play this team. And he knows how to play this team because the Red Bulls are an excellent counter-attacking team. And the one thing that Sporting Kansas City wants to do is they want to be aggressive, they want to press you. And when you press somebody with a counter-attacking side, that means you get numbers. You get numbers on the counter-attacking side where you can get 3-on-2 or you can get 4-on-3. And you can make it difficult. And when you have someone like Henry who can put one killer ball in, and you have someone like Bradley Phillips who's particularly playing really well, you can cause a lot of problems with a high pressing team like Sporting Kansas City. So just think the Red Bulls play well against the style that Sporting Kansas City plays. And you kind of saw that a little bit when they played the Seattle Sounders, who's also a possession high pressing team like Sporting Kansas City. So this game's Red Bull Arena. Sporting Kansas City for the last 2 years has been a quality road team. They're not phenomenal by any stretch of the imagination. They have lost games. I believe it was they lost 8 games this year on the road. So they're not the greatest road team, but they are a good road team. But the Red Bulls have only lost 3 games at home. However, and this is the big however, the Red Bulls have never won a playoff game at Red Bull Arena. And there's a lot of talk, particularly from Henry, about how fans don't respect the teams, how fans like to boo the team, how he really despises that. And he always points out that he never very unforgiving about that. But the truth of the matter is, this team has never won a playoff game. And when I look at this matchup, if Sporting Kansas City goes in the first 10-15 minutes and puts a goal in, the fans are going to boo. The fans are going to be uneasy. They're not going to cheer. There's already issues in the supporter section of Red Bull Arena where 2 groups sing one song and 1 group sings another song. It's been disjointed the entire season when it comes to that fan base. So this is not going to be the Red Bull Arena that the start of the year. And this is going to be a fan base that's very uneasy. So I'm going to give it to the Red Bulls. I think Pecky just happens to have Pierre Vermeer's number. I think when the Red Bulls commit to counterattacking, they are an excellent team. But if Sporting Kansas City scores a goal early, I think all bets are off. I don't see Red Bulls coming back and winning a game. And I have to give it to Sporting only on an early goal. Other than that, I'm giving it to the Red Bulls. Now, we're moving to the 2-3 matchup. And that is the New England Revolution and the Columbus Crew, who have been the best 2 teams in the East. And probably 2 of the best 4 teams since, let's say, August. Over the last 15 games, Columbus is 10-3-2. New England is also 10-3-2. Columbus has been succeeding with contributions from formerly, obviously, unknown players. It may not be fair for people who are Columbus fans who know these guys like Ethan Finley and Justin Morrow and really big MLS fans who've been watching these guys all year. But for most of the people who don't consistently watch MLS, these guys are unknown commodities. And this season, these 2 players particularly scored 19 goals and have 11 assists. In their past 3 seasons, Justin Morrow has 5 goals and 4 assists, and Finley has 0. So these who are successful this season are unproven commodities over the long haul. But it gives an interesting thing. It gives us an interesting narrative. It allows us to discover these players if they make a long playoff run. Obviously, for New England, it's league win MVP. I think should be a top. I think there's 4 finalists for MVP this season. That Phillips, Martin, Keane, and Wynn. Obviously, there's only 3 quote-unquote finalists, but I think there's 4 legitimate finalists. So any 4 of those players, any 3 of those 4 players in that combination would be fine with me. And I think Lee Wynn probably is the front runner only because he's not stealing. He doesn't have anybody else stealing votes for him. But that's not a different topic. Obviously, Jermaine Jones has shifted the narrative in New England since they have been winning with his arrival. And he's given something that they needed, which is a defensive midfielder and really a superstar, a legitimate superstar. I mean, Wynn's a star, and he gets respect on the team, but he doesn't get that press. He doesn't get that glamour. Jermaine Jones has now made New England Revolution a team that people want to see, and people want to watch on TV, and more media want to cover. And that kind of helps with believing that people believe in you, believing that you're worth watching, that you're worth something. It's a small psychological advantage. The strength of both these teams come through the middle of the field. For the Columbus Crew, they have good center-back pairing. Michael Parkhurst has been excellent all season long. Obviously, you have Will Trapp, who is phenomenal as a holding midfielder. And you have Frederick Iguain, who in that number 10 role is magic. He doesn't play a central attacking midfielder role. He plays that classic number 10 role. So he's not as adept at bringing in all elements of the team into the game. He doesn't play with the ball in front of him as much as someone, say, Javier Morales does. But he can score better than Javier Morales and Diego Valeri. So I think he can be someone who can take over a game individually, as does New England with New Win. He can take over a game individually. I think both teams do have issues when it comes to players up on top. When it comes to scoring, I say we had Finley, said before, who's been scoring well this year, but he's not proven. We have Charlie Davies from the New England Revolution, who is finally coming back to form. Obviously not what the player he was. He was a national team player. Now he's just a good contributing veteran. But for New England, we also have the good center backs, and we have Jermaine Jones. We also have Kellen Rowe in the middle of the field. The one issue with New England was we all expected the young players, Rowe and Diego Fugunda, to take a step up, and they really haven't. That's a year-long narrative. That's not a over 2-game narrative. But you know that they have the talent, and they can put it together for one game. And I think of all the series that's going forward, this is the one that's going to be the most difficult to predict and the most evenly played. I think personally that this is a game that's going to be defined by how good the goalkeepers are. And Steve Clark has been underrated the entire season. Steve Clark for Columbus Crew, a goalkeeper, is a top 3 goalkeeper in the league. He is phenomenal. He can control the back line. He can make saves. He's smart. He's not gonna make mistakes. And that to me gives me the edge for Columbus. As long as New England doesn't have a game where they, because of the goal situation, the way goal situation, I don't think that's going to make a big difference. I think both teams are going to hold serve at home. I just question is, does New England have the capability to win a 3-1 game at home? I think that's going to be an issue in this matchup, because I think New England can score 3 or 4 goals. I don't think Columbus can. I think Columbus can grind you out 2-1. Maybe even a 2-0 victory is in the cards for Columbus. But I'm more concerned on the aggregates if New England can get that big goal burst at home. If they can't put in 3 goals at home, it's Columbus all the way. I think Columbus is the more balanced team all around. So this was Homegrown. This was the Eastern Conference preview. Again, if you haven't listened to it, the Western Conference preview is on another podcast. Like I said before, it's a little difficult to listen to one person by themselves talk for an extended period of time, so I wanted to keep it a little short. And we'll hopefully in the next 2-3 weeks we're going to have a podcast where we're going to deal with the bigger, broader topics. We're absolutely 100% going to have a college preview podcast for the playoffs in December. But when it comes to MLS stuff, when it comes to the alignment, when it comes to Chivas, when it comes to anything else that kind of falls into the league, we're going to have a larger podcast with a query, the 3 questions, in the normal format. We're going to also do weekly podcasts for the playoffs as well. So this was Homegrown. This was Jay, also known as Rescinded Red. Follow us on Soccer Yanks at Twitter, and obviously SoccerYanks.com. Thank you for listening.